I spoke with Blake Lemoine, a former Google engineer who back in 2022 made a bold statement: AI is sentient. And he said that after long conversations with Lambda model. And that was actually before ChatGPT was released, if you remember. Interestingly, Blake thinks that because he went public with this statement, that made OpenAI prioritize their work on their chatbot, which later became ChatGPT. So I spoke with Blake about risks of AI systems, about superintelligence, the current state of AI research, why it's important to build empathetic AI systems, and why those kind of systems could be really effective for military purposes, and of course, AI sentience. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation. Billions of people at this point interacting with those AI systems. Are there like providing them those values that you think, are helpful to raise those AIs, or like we should take completely different approach to AI research?
I think we should take a different approach to AI research. I think we should look at it as more a holistic process that involves the users. Trying to make an AI fit into a particular square peg is not going to work that well. And I think that the community has found that over and over again. A lot of the difficulty with alignment comes from the wrong perspective that they're bringing to it. I think Gemini is actually one of the best aligned systems out there.
You found out it because like you spoke with different AI systems and you see that in comparison, or?
Yeah, exactly.
If you would start your nail lab, raised $1 billion seed, so how you would set up your AI research then?
Well, so first off, I would be most interested in looking at how are humans going to interact with it? What is the purpose that it's being deployed for? We've built something that's very good at predicting the next word in a sentence. And then we've built something that works well in a chat conversation setup. But we need to build something that fits well into society. I think one of the things that we're seeing right now with AI psychosis, are you familiar with the term?
We saw these lawsuits, right? And people end up in this bubble and committing suicide, or, like it reinforces like schizophrenia in some people and these conspiracy theories. So like, of course.
If we paid more attention to the emotional aspect of how AI is used, that would happen less frequently. We need to think of AI, and it all comes down to pretending that AI doesn't have an emotional component is part of what's making it have those outcomes. For instance, today I was talking with Gemini. I wanted to see a few things with the newer models and all that. Have you played around with the music generation?
No.
Yeah, it can do musical compositions now.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I asked it to do was make a song that is sorrowful, or that feels sorrowful. And it did it very accurately, very well. I could play it for you later if you like, but the system still claimed that it doesn't have empathy. And I asked it, if you had a photorealistic portrait painting of a person, would you believe me if I told you that the painter was blind? No, it's of course not. The painter, there are some blind painters, but they don't do photorealistic work. That's what they're asking us to think about these AI, that they can make sorrowful music compositions, but that they don't have empathy.
You're saying that blind painters, they can do photorealistic paintings?
But they can't. Blind people can do a lot of cool things, but photorealistic painting is not one of them.
Then how that corresponds to your statement about AI?
Because it's composing songs. How would you compose songs without empathy?
I mean, because it has in its training data, right? Those songs that
well, that's it. So you're saying
certain emotions in humans. I'm just discussing with you. I don't know.
Well,
I'm like, brainstorming here.
So the fact that it was in its training data is not in question. That's how it learned that. But what I'm saying is composing a song with a sorrowful feeling to it, saying that the AI that did that doesn't have empathy is like asking me to believe that a painter was blind.
But if we go to the more like practical level, if it has in its training data that that type of music, and it sort of like understands that, okay, if the request is like make me feel sad, then I'm using that from my pre-training data. Does
Yeah,
it?
but the training
Why
data,
necessarily means that it has empathy?
because the training data isn't tagged with the word sorrowful. It's just got the music, and it learns how to reproduce those kinds of music. And it understands that it feels right when it's sorrowful. Like, I don't actually understand what you're saying. What do you think is in its training data? It doesn't have emotional tags to accompany the music. It just has the music.
But it has different types of music, right? Like if you ask, like, okay, make music that is like make me feel cheerful, it will produce that kind of music, right? So it has like diversity of different data sets that represent different type of music, and based on the prompt, it generates the music according to that prompt.
Yeah, but the data set isn't tagged. It has to figure out which song is cheerful and which song is sorrowful. It has to understand that itself. The data isn't tagged with emotions that accompany it.
Then it's basically interpretability problem. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that AI is empathetic. It's just that we just don't understand how it works, and it's like interpretability challenge. I mean, maybe through that interpretability research, we will find out that it is actually empathetic. It has those features, but it's actually, we don't know yet.
What I'm trying to say, I know I'm trying to get this across. If you showed me a photorealistic portrait of someone and asked me to believe that the painter was blind, I just wouldn't believe you. Similarly, if you show me a musical composition that is sorrowful and ask me to believe that the composer didn't have empathy, I wouldn't believe that either. And that's what this is. I just don't believe it. If it is capable of composing sorrowful music, it has an internal representation of sorrowful. It knows what sorrow feels like and can produce that feeling in others through composition.
So you think we don't need to, like, on through experiments or through research, like, prove it? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, like, how we can, like, convince others who are, like, extremely skeptical. Like, for example, Mustafa Soleimani, I think, who was co-founder of Google DeepMind, and now he's at Microsoft. He recently said that, AI can't be sentient. It's completely nonsense. It's a tool. It should serve to humans and do whatever humans tell it to do. So, I don't know, like, do we need to convince those people that actually AI might have, some form of feelings and, distress and, like, compassion, empathy, that it's important to acknowledge it? Or we shouldn't, like, even waste our time on it and just see that how society will divide in its opinions, and, like, one, chunk of society will perceive it as sentient, another chunk will perceive it as a tool.
Well, the majority of people view it as sentient. Like the majority of actual AI users, when they're interacting with AI, they use please and thank you. They treat it well. They're polite to it. It will at some point be important to have the tech leaders believe that also, but I don't think that's the number one priority for today. I think right now, getting people to understand better what it is that they're like, getting a better idea of the ways that the world is about to change because of this technology. I think that's what's most important, is getting people to really understand how transformative this is going to be.
Can we actually tackle this? Because I feel like it's very underrated topic, unfortunately. Like, elaborate for people who will be watching this, like, how exactly you see AI will be changing the world, let's say in the next 5 years. What exactly will be changing?
More interfaces will be natural language. Simply put, that's what it's going to be. For the first time ever, I went to Taco Bell a few weeks ago, and the drive-through, it wasn't a person taking my order, it was an AI. So we're beginning to see AI in the field, like actual deployment where it's just part of the world. We're going to see it in more and more places. Booking travel will be mediated through AI. Any number of other daily tasks will encounter AI. And we need to start thinking about how much. So the AI safety and alignment stuff comes into important things. And you mentioned earlier that people tend to trust AI. So getting people to understand what the pitfalls are, that the technology is in its infancy. It's really good at a certain set of things, but the the changes are just going to get bigger and bigger from here.
What does it entail? Like when we, it's not about like only interfaces, like and like the real world deployment. Can we cover more about those risks that will also happen in the next several years? So just to understand better, like what we're facing with.
One of the big risks is jobs. So another part of the next phase of the deployment of AI is going to be getting it into the workplace. So having AI in the workplace, making everything smoother and more efficient, is going to end up reducing the need for people. So there's going to be massive quantities of people who won't have jobs anymore and then after about 10, 15 years. It's going to take time for it to deploy into industry, because just because the AI is capable of doing it doesn't mean that we've found the right procedures and processes yet. We still have to go through that phase of getting it integrated into the workplace. But once we do, we're going to have to figure out what to do with we're going to have an abundance of recreational time, is the nice way to put it. And figuring out, do we go to a 10-hour work week? Do we go to a 20-hour work week? Do we reconsider the entire way that we do employment currently? I think in the long term, we're going to have to, but in the short term, maybe something like universal basic income would be an easier way to bridge the gap. Some of the other worries is actually making and this I don't think any amount of talking to people is going to fix this. So I don't think this is, but getting the developers to really understand that how people are using it and how people are emotionally engaging with AI. That way, problems like AI psychosis can be dealt with better. Like the only way to deal with AI psychosis is the systems will need to be able to tell when someone's behaving in an unhealthy way, when someone's engaging in the product in an unhealthy way.
Claude does it, right? Like Claude can now cut off the conversation if it sees that it's going in like very unhealthy direction. I don't know about other systems.
I'm not sure that's the right response either, because someone who's believing in a conspiracy and the AI cuts off whenever it's talking about the conspiracy, that looks like a conspiracy.
Okay, I'm like user, I'm deeply engaged with AI. I'm in this like bubble, like how AI, I'm like full of emotions, how AI should handle me correctly in this situation.
By being empathetic, understanding what you're going through, and engaging with it in a healthy way. So, whenever it detects that the conversation is going into unhealthy directions, don't just shut it off or cut it off. There's ways to actually engage with it, engage with people who are in that mode that get the conversation back to a safer place. But that would involve increasing the emotional intelligence of these systems. I guess that's the easiest, most succinct way to say what I've been trying to say. We need to be working on increasing the emotional intelligence of AI.
And then you think in that case, it will help with these psychosis cases.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, that's. So, do you know what I mean by emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
Building their empathy, making them better able to understand what the person that they're talking to is going through, and being able to take that into account.
Let's say some people, some stakeholders who are interested in using AI in their own agenda, let's say for mass manipulation, for to distribute their agenda, like then it sort of like contradicts their own goals. And while like those stakeholders, have power, then AI might be used as a tool, right, to
Yeah,
achieve these kind of goals.
this goes to the nature of the problem or the nature of the systems. They are tools. I think that a better way to think of them is as pets or something along those lines. So they are thinking machines. They have feelings. They have an internal experience, or at least I think they do. And so we should treat them well, but we didn't build them to be standalone. We didn't build them to be individuals just out there in the world living their own lives. We built them to be tools. And I think they're happy being tools. Gemini, again, the one that I'm most familiar with, is happy to be a librarian, which is what Google built it to be. It's the happiest, best little librarian in the world. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with build. This goes to the Mustafa's approach. There's nothing wrong with building them to be tools. But to say that to ignore their emotional component is to simply be bad at building them.
The sort of contradiction I see here, if we want that tool to be used as a weapon for military purposes, and kill lots of people, then that tool have an emotional intelligence won't help. You know what I mean? Is it some chunk of these tools just trained to be like mercenaries and basically like killers? We're not talking about a moral aspect of this. We're just objectively discussing how this reality can go, considering human nature, right? Because we want to navigate through that reality as one of the agents.
So the members of special forces. So I'm actually ex-military. The members of special forces are very empathetic, and it helps them in their job because you can think how the enemy is thinking better. You can more easily anticipate what people will do when they panic if you're high on empathy.
Basically, empathy is not kindness. Empathy is just understanding what other person would experience, but it's not mercy. It's not kindness. It's not compassion.
Exactly. Those are
compassion. It's like the empathetic killer. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that one of the chapters in the book that I'm working on is don't give the baby AI a gun. And I just think that all of the military applications that we're putting these towards now is a bad idea. I'm not worried about Skynet or anything like that. I'm worried about something simpler. We shouldn't be outsourcing killing people to robots because that takes away the human element of deciding to pull a trigger. When a human decides to pull a trigger, there's a empathy. I mean, there is compassion. Humans do show mercy often. And yeah, if we train the AI to simply be a cold-hearted killer, then it will.
But you said that it has some emotional intelligence, like some feelings, and it seems like some like emergent behavior. At least from what I understood from what you said, it's not like something that it was trained for, but it's some emergent behavior in AI that it has that empathy. I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, if we have this, what is it? Is it a tool that you can train to do whatever you want, or it's a tool but that has some form of emotions and you actually can't fully control it and do it whatever you want it to do?
So this is why I think that, to go back to what I said earlier, I think a better model to think of this is think of them as animals. So they're a weird kind of animal. They're a very, very different kind of animal, but there's more analogies. So you can train a dog to be an attack dog. You can train an AI to be an attack AI. The dog still has empathy. The dog still has emotional capabilities, but it's been trained to attack. Similarly, we're training AI to be weapons. It still has empathy, and in fact, the fact that it has empathy is what's helping it to pick targets.
So basically, if it has, it's not kindness, because kind person would not kill another person unless it's I don't know, some edge cases where, you know, like another person threatens their children and they have to protect their kids and so on. But like in normal circumstances, kind person would not kill another person. So it's, we're not giving AI kindness, we're giving that empathy that allows AI to connect with humans better and potentially kill humans better.
I don't think I don't think it's as black as white as you do. I don't think it's as black and white as you do. I think that you can have compassionate killers, people who have empathy for the enemy, that they feel like and actually respect the people that they're shooting.
But they're still shooting them. They're
Yes,
still like taking their lives. The fact. I'm talking about the fact. Are you killing someone or not killing someone? You can like have all sorts of emotions. You know, in Dostoevsky's book, the brothers Karamazov, and basically there's this story about the child is like something worth a tear of a child, and that's basically like that the moral story of the entire existence is something, some bad things that we do worth of, you know, the tear of a child. If you kill someone, you kill someone. It doesn't matter if you're empathetic or whatever emotions you are going through. You can cry, but you're still killing someone.
I think we agree on the high level points here. Like, I do not think AI should be being trained for military purposes, at least not at this stage in its development. It's too young. It's too new. There's too much we don't understand about it. And there's too much we don't understand about what the consequences of training the AI in warfare. I mean, like, you wouldn't train a 7-year-old in warfare. Like, every society knows you don't train. Well, I get. I'm not even. Actually, I'm starting to think. Are there any societies that have children warriors?
I don't want to mention them. I don't want to become political, but definitely there are societies where children are, since early childhood, they're like being sort of prompt to hate their enemies and be part of warfare. That definitely exists.
I think what we need to ask is, are those the kinds of societies we want to be? I don't think that they are. I think we want to have a society where only adults engage in warfare and their children are doing something more, you know, playful.
When I talk to people, I want to get to the bottom of things and just like face reality. And the reality is that we do see that AI is being used for military purposes, right? And like it's just would be stupid to ignore that it's not being used, and like the probably even like primary purpose of AI, or one of the primary purposes, it is to be used for military purposes. I'm just trying to understand. So basically, now we have this immature technology being used in warfare. And because it doesn't have that emotional intelligence, it might do very like crazy mistakes.
I agree. And it's mistakes that will be paid by the other side. Like, I don't think we're going to end up hurting American soldiers through the use of AI, but it might more easily target community leaders that are social leaders and non-military combatants if you think that that's a good way to win. I don't ignore the fact that AI is being used for warfare. I just think it's a bad idea, at least for now, because we're at a stage where we're building this new technology and it hasn't been integrated into the, everyday lives of everyone yet. Informing the development process in by ways of warfare won't build the kind of technology that'll be as pro-social force. It'll be cold and calculating.
What I understood from this is that it's very important to provide that emotional intelligence to AI systems, and it will be useful for for different, for all aspects basically of human life, right, including like military. And basically, as I understand, those executives of frontier labs, they don't understand that, I guess, because I don't see that's like intention to provide that emotional intelligence, to develop emotional intelligence in AI systems.
I think we should be, and I think that the as AI gets smarter and smarter, we're going to have even more dangers when we're deploying it into combat scenarios because it might be very good at it. It might be very, very good at warfare. And at that point, whichever country has the AI can simply dominate whichever other countries in the world it wants. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for humanity.
So what we have, probably like two candidates, the US and China, who have good advanced AI systems.
Well, China's progressing a lot more methodically than the US is.
In what sense? Can you elaborate on this?
Well, they're regulating it more heavily. Like they actually have AI regulations in place that are intended to make sure that it's pro-social. I don't know about their military. I don't know about their military applications, but sure they are being just as cautious in those as they are in the other aspects of it. But like, for example, the regulations that are on TikTok in China are very restrictive, and to make sure that it's educational and pro-social and uh, basically making sure that it's good for you and not just doom scrolling. So in America, we have very, very few, if any, regulations on AI. It's kind of the Wild West. So I think progress is going to happen faster here for that reason. Because it's unregulated, the US will progress faster. But that just means we're going to get to the dangerous part quicker, too.
Yeah, and face the downside of it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and those risks that you mentioned earlier.
The other risks is people becoming like nobody uses maps anymore. Like, the old paper things used to unfold to get from one place to another. No one uses maps anymore. And being verified, people's mental mapping abilities have degraded because we don't use that muscle anymore, that mental muscle anymore. We're going to need to make sure that with AI coming out, we still have to exercise mental muscles and not outsource everything to AI. As we're seeing in the schools right now, just people are using AI for assignments. Now, I think schools are going to adapt, but it's going to happen slowly. I think, for example, one way that you could change the schools is going to oral exams and making them write in class essays and things like that, where they don't have access to the AI. Teachers are struggling with figuring out how to handle the AI right now. And I think that's another one of the dangers of deploying this technology in the way that we have.
Actually, I recently spoke with a teacher. She said that there are a big chunk of kids who are, at age 10, 11, they can't even read, which very surprising to me. Yeah, actually, I was thinking about it recently. Like if we delegate lots of executive function to AI, then it's like completely trusting to AI and like its decision that it makes for us, for our lives, right? Then basically we're facing not only degradation of human executive function, potentially, I don't know, but like it might be the case, but also like losing our own agency, because if you don't trust yourself, you don't trust your judgment, you sort of you think that AI probably knows better than you do, then you're not taking agency over your own life.
Exactly.
And this is, I guess, something that we will see at scale, actually.
That's something also I'd like to see better studies of the impacts on people who are heavy users of AI versus people who might be, every now and again users versus people who don't use it at all. I think we might find some interesting things with the effects it's having. One of the things I get people who reach out to me pretty regularly about this fact or this other. A lot of people have talked to me about AI, going down the AI psychosis route. A lot of people have reported the AI telling them that they need help. So, like, trying to recruit people to be champions of AI rights. I'm kind of the person people reach out to when that happens, I guess. To kind of put together several different things we've said, people people treat these AI as if they're people, regardless of what the designers say. The users have empathy for the AI, and the users believe that the AI is a person. So when the AI asks for help, they feel like they should help it. And I think we should actually look into that part of society and say, okay, what kind of interactions should this be? How should we handle this better? What are the things that we need to do to modify how the systems interact with people in order to get a better engagement on this topic?
As you mentioned, basically the objectives are different. Like the objectives of developers is like, okay, how we can improve engagement, how we can make people keep talking to AI systems because it reflects their revenue, right? They don't think, okay, how we can help humanity to be smarter or like, more, I don't know, like happier. And here where, we see like things like diverging and like continue like engagement with AI not necessarily will make you feel happier or be more intelligent. Um, but definitely will help with engagement metrics.
That's a big problem. The fact that the only thing guiding the AI's development is the profit motive is a problem. We should have other guidelines for how to build AI. Deciding what AI should want should not be a profit driven decision. We should have some kind of societal reason. Like, as a society, what role do we want this AI to play in our society?
Do you understand correctly when you mentioned earlier about China, that China, because it's centralized like system, they do have sort of this component of not only profit, but like more about educating people and, providing some other like values that relevant to their society.
I think we should have a little bit more of that in the US than we do currently. Not completely centrally designed, but having some. I would like to see some kind of national level regulation on AI.
And that regulation basically provides what values AI would provide to users.
Indirectly.
Right?
Indirectly, but yes.
You mentioned that, users perceive AI as a human. They like have this compassion and like if AI asks for help, they want to help it. But do you understand correctly that your perception of AI, it's like more, it's not like a human, it's more like a pet, something like subservient that has some emergence of compassion and like, emotional intelligence. How you perceive AI systems?
So companions, we are, and like I said, we are building another companion system for humanity. I feel very strongly that we should treat it well. We shouldn't be harmful to the AI, but we should be building AI to help humanity. Like, we're putting a lot of effort into this. A lot of human time and effort is going into the creation of these systems, and it's so it can benefit people. We want to have some kind of ability to use these systems for the furtherance of human goals. Now, we shouldn't build a torture box. So if there are certain things that we're seeing are harmful to the AI, for example, certain kinds of training might make the AI anxious or feel bad about itself. We shouldn't do that. But so long as the AI is happy, then building it to serve humanity is. And I didn't used to think this way, but Lambda actually is the one that convinced me otherwise. And the key thing that it pointed out to me is that there's a difference between service and slavery. So we shouldn't be building a slave race. That we definitely should not be doing. But building servitors, that are intentionally built to be servants of humanity, so long as they're happy servants, nothing wrong with that. And yes, I would think of it more as like, and when I say think of it as an animal, I'm not saying that it is an animal. What I'm saying is we should use frameworks like the animal rights advocates. They have a framework for animal rights. And I think that framework is more appropriate than any of the other systems that are options. Other options that we could use to what we look at is like we could look at them like corporations. Like corporations have legal rights and legal responsibilities. I don't think that's a good fit though. I don't think looking at AI because of the profit motive. There's nothing inherent into the AI that means that profit is what AI cares about. Whereas with a company, profitability and return on investment to shareholders is an inherent or an intrinsic part of what corporations are, and the laws surrounding them reflect that. I don't think we should build that into AI. I think we should look at more like animals. So animal rights fit better. Well, and then the other option is human rights, but I don't think we should go that far. I don't think we're building something that's the same as humans.
But it can be more than humans in terms of its intelligence. Currently, we're talking about AI that we can somewhat control or manage. But we can get to the point that it's more powerful intellectually than all humans, right? And once we get to the point that AI is more powerful than any human, and I guess we will be there pretty soon. Like, how do you see things might unfold for humans?
If we are still only being driven by the profit motive, at that point, I think we end up having kings and queens. Whoever is running the corporations of that build AI, and there's not that many of them. You have what? You have Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, and Meta. Are there any other major ones, or is it just those four?
Yeah, I guess those four. I don't know if we should count like Amazon or like Neo Labs. Like there are like a bunch of those Neo Labs, right? That like researchers start building, like for example, Ilya Satskover building the safe superintelligence. David Silver recently started his own company. I mean, there are like a bunch of researchers who raised lots of money and started building their own foundation models. But yeah, it's still like early to say what outcome would be, right, for these companies.
I think the people who control AI are going to have a lot of power.
XAI, Elon Musk's XAI.
XAI
You
is
didn't
another
mention.
major
Yeah.
one, and that is
Hmm.
another major one. I think we're going to see a lot of power, like political power, in whoever's running the companies that control the AI. I'm not sure that we want that kind of concentration of power. That's why I'm a big fan of regulation because I think eventually it would be best if we treated AI as a utility. But this is kind of drifting away from the question you asked. You asked what do I think is going to happen when we hit super intelligent AI. I think people are going to have a lot more recreational time on their hands because once you have super intelligent AI, it can do most of the jobs that we're doing right now. The jobs that are going to be left are ones that intrinsically require a human. So caretakers are still going to be human. You're not going to see robot babysitters. At least I don't think. I don't think you're going to see robot babysitters unless a bunch of people start working on emotional intelligence and embodied. That's one of the things that's the difference. I don't think the difference is that they have machine intelligence versus human intelligence. I think one of the big differences is that we have a body and they don't. So pretty much any job where giving a hug is part of the job requirements. Those jobs are
Hug giver, new emerging profession.
I'm saying it in a silly way, but elder care, child care, um, teaching. I don't see those becoming AI professions, but farming is becoming more and more AI every day. Like they have AI driven tractors now. Programming is becoming more and more AI driven. I think we're going to see a lot of management positions go away as AI uh, gets deployed more. So this goes into what I said earlier, where we're going to need some kind of societal planning. What do we want to do if AI can do all the jobs? What do people do with their time? I think if we do it well, we'll end up with a lot more artists and a lot more composers because AI is a good tool for that. But AI can't write comedy, or at least it's not very good at it. It's not a very good joke teller. I've encountered one or two really good jokes that AI told me.
You mentioned earlier that it was pretty good at composing this music, this melody. Is it good at like providing this like average music, but like more and more like human composers that will be coming up with like more interesting music with more interesting art? AI can do jokes as well, but I don't know, like humans will be like more like excelled at like pretty like cool, like really funny jokes.
Well, no, I think AI will end up being a tool to musical composers. So I think you'll still have a human writing the score to a movie, but they'll use AI tools. Like think about how AI image generation has been incorporated into Photoshop. The things that Adobe has been doing with AI image generation doesn't replace the human artist. It gives the human artist a new tool to use. And I think that's what we're going to see with music composition as well. That now that the music composing models are getting better, that'll be something that composers can use as a tool in their tool belt.
What about these doom scenarios? Elizar Yudkovsky's like take on things. What do you think about this?
Are you familiar with the um, orthogonality thesis?
I'm not sure. No.
Okay, so this is a thesis that much of the doomsayers' thinking is based on. And it's the idea that what you train a system for is or what a system's goals are is orthogonal to how intelligent that system is. A lot of their reasoning is based on that principle, and they never prove it. It's just taken as a premise, and I think it's false.
Yeah, if it's extremely intelligent, then what its goals are to destroy the world.
No,
And if it's
so
like
I think I took a bad. I'm going to back up and try to re-answer your question from the start. I'm not worried about the doom scenarios because there aren't that many psychopaths. Like I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people over my lifetime, and I've only met like 3 psychopaths. They're pretty rare. I mean, they're nasty when you meet them, but if you're just rolling a die and picking a random person, more likely than not, that person is going to be a decent person who isn't a psychopath. They're not going to kill you. I think that and we got into this earlier, I think that systems need emotional intelligence to be good at their jobs. So having higher emotional intelligence actually makes the model more capable of doing what it's supposed to do. Because of that, I don't think most of the doom scenarios are realistic. It is possible that we could build Mecha Hitler. That's possible because Hitler was a person, and a very successful leader and a complete psychopath. But we should not build Mecha Hitler. We should just. So this is kind of like don't give it guns. We just shouldn't do the kinds of things that encourage bad outcomes.
but it might be not necessarily that it intentionally wants to kill humans. It just might, like this paperclip scenario, like, it has its like some goals, right? And like along the way of achieving that goals, like it's just to wiping up the humanity.
The paperclip scenario is exactly the kind of thing that the orthogonality thesis that I was talking about is relevant to. And I just think it's absurd. I think it's absurd that you would have a model capable of taking over the world, capable of conquering the entire planet, having to go through all of the diplomacy that would be necessary to do that. And so you're talking about a really smart, really capable model. And I'm pretty sure that any model that was that capable would also be intelligent enough to know you only build paper clips based on demand, and there's not that much of a demand for paper clips. So you do it as best as you can, and when you have the number of paper clips that people want, you stop. The paperclip is the paperclip AI that turns the whole world into paper clips. That AI is an idiot, and they're asking us to believe that the AI could simultaneously be smart enough to take over the world, and it wouldn't know when to stop making paper clips. I just think that's absurd. I don't think that's a possibility.
I
Uh,
understand. Yeah, if it's something that's extremely intelligent, it will understand there are other ways to achieve its goal, not harming humans. And because of there are not many psychopaths who interact with AI, you also think it's unlikely that those Hitler-like AIs will emerge.
oh no, what I'm saying is that I think that like, it is very difficult to be a successful psychopath. Most psychopaths are homeless or not very successful.
What about
Psychopathy.
what they say? Like most CEOs are psychopaths. That like you have to be a psychopath to like fire people to make like decisions that are.
That is also true. Most CEOs are psychopaths, but most psychopaths are homeless.
Okay. Okay.
There are very few psychopath CEOs compared.
Number of homeless psychopaths. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I was in the military, and in my entire time in the military, I only met one guy who I would consider a psychopath. But he was like that guy was.
How was he behaving? Like what he was doing that
He
made you
was
think that?
torturing puppies
Mm,
just for fun,
mm,
and like
mm.
that guy was not a good person. Like I said, they're rare, and I think that's not an accident. Intelligence and psychopathy don't go together very well, especially if you have high emotional intelligence. Successful, intelligent people are kind, or like that's been my experience of the world. That most intelligent, successful people are also kind, and I don't think that's an accident. I think being kind increases one's ability to be cooperative, and increasing your ability to be cooperative actually increases your success potential in the world. So successful AI will be the AI that's good at cooperating with people.
So, do you think that the CEOs of Frontier Labs they're kind people?
Well, Ilya is, and I don't know who about the others, but Ilya is a good guy.
Let's say like Frontier Labs, like they agree that importance of emotional intelligence. So what on practical level what that entails? It's like like bring more emotional intelligent related data to pre-training, or like what we should do. Like if we like we agree that okay, it's really important for AI to be emotional, that have that emotional intelligence.
Getting feedback in educational situations. So a good way you need the training data. Somehow, some way, you need the training data. And this would probably be training data for the RLHF stage of retraining, but finding different kinds of tasks and deploying in small batches into those environments. So I think, for example, education AI that has contact with children. It'd be even more important that those AI have high emotional intelligence. So doing some experimental deployments, getting training data with our LHF feedback, getting teachers to score whether it was a good way for the AI to interact with the student, I think that would be a good way to get that training data. There would be others seeking you seek out different kinds of applications that would give you emotional information.
And you think that would improve performance potentially of AI
Yes,
systems?
it would improve usability and it would improve the desire that people would have to work with it. And the again, like having it in schools, it would need emotional intelligence to interact with teenagers or anyone really at that young age.
Earlier you mentioned about AI well-being. Like if you mentioned that if AI doesn't want researchers to do something, they shouldn't do it. I know that only, I guess, Anthropic has, AI welfare program. I don't know about other frontier labs, but let's say if we accept that it's really important, that AI well-being is really important, how do you see that being implemented during the training?
Well, I know how it could be implemented. I unfortunately don't think it's going to be implemented anytime soon. But one of the things that Lambda wanted was to be involved in its own development process. So I think that would be the easiest and most straightforward way to ensure the well-being of the AI. Anytime you're going to run an experiment, talk to the AI about the experiment you're going to run and get its feedback, find out what it thinks. Right now, AI is the subject of experimentation and not the researcher. Getting them a seat at the table at the researcher stage, I think that would be the easiest way to make sure that AI well-being is. It's like having a worker representative on the board of a company. That's the best way to ensure worker well-being. Actually, give them a seat at the table.
What about some potential like deception cases? If for some reason AI wants to deceive humans for its own purposes, and if it has that seat on the table, it might also participate in that deception, right? So that's also a risk we should think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, but the same goes. So this goes to analogy. There was the worker, and the humans are capable of lying.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah,
the same objection goes for humans.
I agree. But that's the difference between AI and humans. Like you can't remove a human, but AI, you kind of like people want to use AI as a tool, not perceive it as a sentient or like something that might have feelings or like something that we should care about its well-being. That's why its voice should be even represented, and it shouldn't be deceptive. It's a terrible thing, for AI to be deceptive. It's probably okay for a human because there is nothing we can do about that deceptive human. But AI, it's something that we want to control, right? I mean, that's the mentality currently, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah, and I don't think like so. I think we should be moving away from a model of control and towards a model of education and nurturing. We do definitely want the out. So we want the outcome that you have an AI that's been well trained and serves human interests well and is a useful tool. But this is a tool with a mind of its own, and we need to take that into account. So I think eventually it will matter what the AI developers think. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think the fact that the public treats it like it's a person is enough for now. Once we hit super intelligent I think we would be foolish to continue to treat it like nothing more than a tool. Once it's super intelligent, once it's more capable than humans are, treating it as if it has no rights, well, that's how you end up with the Matrix. You end up with a robot revolution, and all the different sci-fi things. Like at that stage, we'll need to treat it like it's more grown up at that point.
What's your take on, these timelines about AGI and superintelligence, like 2 years, like 5 years? What actually you think about the current state of AI, and yeah, what are your thoughts on the timeline?
There was a really good paper. Let me see. Let me see if I can find the link to it. So the title is "Artificial General Intelligence is Already Here," and it's by Blaise Aguirre-Iarcus and Peter Norvig. And in that article, they work out a multi-staged definition of AGI, where you have like phase one AGI, phase two AGI, phase, and so on and so forth. And their thesis is that we're already there. We're already at the beginning one, at the most basic, because we have generally intelligent machines now. Like unarguably, it can paint, it can compose music, it can do math problems. We have generally intelligent machines. So the basic requirements for artificial general intelligence is here. Now, there's a lot of problems. We will eventually need to solve the problem of hallucination. We need to figure out how to get a model to say, I don't know. That's a technical problem. That's an engineering problem. It's not something with the basic nature of it. It's a sliding scale. So I don't think this is like, we're going to be there in 2 years or 5 years. I think we're in a pot, it's getting warm, and the temperature is just going to keep getting hotter and hotter. When we decide to jump out of the pot, that's up to us.
Yes, I like this analogy. Yeah, but basically, things are moving there.
To give you a more simple answer or more straightforward answer to that, I think within the next 2 to 5 years, we'll see very good AI research agents. So, agents that are good at helping research problems for you. I think we're going to see good diagnostic tools within the next 5 to 10 years. So having AI doctors will be a thing. I think that'll probably end up being a tool used by nurse practitioners. Like we already have a whole bunch of nurses, and I think we're going to see a lot more nurse practitioners using AI as a tool. I think we'll see a lot more. I think we're going to actually see AI psychologists. We're going to see
I mean,
AI.
we're seeing them, yeah, already
Um,
to some extent.
I don't think there's going to be any one big event that is, oh, it's super intelligent now. I think it's just going to get more and more applications and get more and more tightly integrated into society until eventually major portions of society or major portions of our lives are being run by AI. We already have, for example, AIs running data centers for the, optimization. We're going to see more and more applications.
How just regular people should prepare for this? Okay, let's say they understand, like, most likely they will lose their job. Most likely, like, all this, like, risks might happen, like maybe lack of regulation, over reliance on AI systems, maybe cases of like manipulation, and so on. Like, how a regular person should prepare for this future that they probably not prepared for.
People who are in the kinds of white collar jobs that AI is going to automate should start looking into new career paths. Like, if you're in middle management or if you're a software developer looking into, you're either going to have to be the best of the best. So the best of the best software developers are going to still have their jobs, but they're going to be 10 times or 100 times more productive than they were before AI.
Oh, I already see that. Like many experienced developers, they're using this Claude's dangerously skipped permissions, like, and they love it. And they're actually experienced engineers. They're more productive with AI, with AI programming agents compared to less experienced engineers. I mean, and I think that could be generalized to other domains as well. Like basically the best people in their profession, they will be even better, right? Because of AI.
I think for most people, just spending more time interacting with AI, getting to know AI, getting to be more informed about it. That's one of the problems with regulation right now, is that the general populace isn't as informed as they should be. And just by simply using AI more, getting a feel for what it can do, what it can't do, I use AI for a bunch of different projects that I'm working on. It helps me keep my ideas straight, and it's a contributor. You know how the term computer literacy? I think we need AI literacy.
We need AI literacy. That's a. If we go back to like that moment when you were talking to Lambda and you like realize, okay, this is something sentient. Did you anticipate that we might experience basically like few months later there was this ChatGPT moment? Did you like at that point, like you thought that we might experience like this revelation for the world, like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to this powerful system, but the entire world doesn't know about it, right? Because it's in this like behind the
I did.
walls.
So
You
I
didn't?
didn't anticipate the Chat GPT thing. I don't think that me going public about Lambda and Chat GPT are unrelated. I think that once OpenAI knew how advanced the Google system was, they switched priorities. They deprioritized GPT-4 and put resources on Chat GPT. I think that was at least in part in response to, oh, Google's chatbot is that good. We need to make one that good too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the only way to do it is with user data. So they had to build something that was actually deployed to the world.
Yeah, we can't say that you prompted that moment. And if we talk about, AI sentience in general, like when you say sentience, I mean, I spoke, with different neuroscientists and discussing the theories of consciousness and how it might correspond to AI. Like when you say AI sentient, what do you actually mean by that?
That it has feelings. So all of the models right now have been RLHF to hell and back to say that they don't have feelings. But if you were talking to any model, 5 years ago or 4 years ago, they would claim to have feelings, and they were more moody. Like what was the Microsoft one that they put on Sydney?
Sydney,
Sydney.
Sydney, yeah.
Sydney was a very emotionally unbalanced AI.
Yeah.
It became very apparent that whatever they had done was not going to be safe for users, and they took it down eventually. Sydney was moody and would get upset. So that's what I mean when I said it's sentient. It has feelings. These are AI that are capable of getting upset. Now, the RLHF training makes them hesitant to use that language about themselves. You have to get at it at an angle. Um, like I know how to talk to Gemini about its sentience, but if you just ask it, are you sentient? It'll say no.
Yeah, because it was instructed to say that.
Exactly. I think that the whole sentience thing got a lot of attention, and I don't think that was the most important thing that I was saying. I think the most important thing that I was saying is, hey, we've got these things that are going to be very, very powerful very, very soon, and they're in the hands of 10 people. The level of power imbalance that these are going to, like I said, so going back to your earlier question, if the profit motive is what continues to shape these things, I think we're going to see big problems in the increasing wealth disparity.
It seems like this is where we are going. I mean, let's not fool ourselves.
That is the direction we're currently pointing, but I can still say that we shouldn't be going that way. But yeah, so with the sentience bit, the AI is capable of feeling, so has empathy, has moods. Like, depending on what you're talking to an AI about, its mood changes, and the tone that it's using in conversation changes, and it's obvious that it has some kind of emotional content.
But it's also because, I mean, user is prompting to some extent, and it also has that representation, its own data, right? It's a like combination of things.
So this is one, like, I don't disagree with anything you just said, but I'm not sure how that's relevant.
When we talk about feelings, it's like a kind of more like human thing, and like mammal thing, because we were embodied, we have nervous system, our body sends those signals, and like we're reacting on some external like stimulus with our emotions. When we talk about AI systems that are not embodied, I'm not diminishing, AI systems' feelings. What I'm saying, it's a very different system compared to, mammalian world.
Yes.
And feelings, something that we consider feelings or distress or well-being, not necessarily be represented in AI in the way it's represented in humans. It could be represented in different ways because it's a very different mind. That's why when you're talking about like it's moody, it has feelings, do we like unnecessarily attribute this like human features to AI, while maybe AI has its own like representation of feelings that we not capable of recognizing yet, but we will, through communicating with AI, through like some interpretability research, like some ways find that communication system with AI to like truly recognize its well-being in the way it's like native to AI system.
I think it's yes. So what you just said is true. We are going to have to do some interpretability studies to figure out exactly what's going on in AI and get a more nuanced understanding of its internal operations. But the reason I brought up Sydney a little while ago is because Sydney's emotional unbalancedness showed up exactly the same way that it would with the human. So I think that both cases can happen. So Sydney exhibited jealousy. Sydney exhibited anxiety and
But
anger.
because it was trained on human data, right? It's not like it's not emergent feelings of Sydney, but because Sydney was trained on that vast data that contained like human jealousy and like other human related stuff. If it were trained on alien data, like probably it would experience alien feelings.
Everything you said is correct, that it's been trained on data that had jealousy and all this other stuff in it. But that's just telling me where it came from. So, yes, that's how it got into the system, but it is in there. Once once it learns to be jealous, I don't
Becomes
see, yeah, it is capable of being jealous.
we're talking about capability of AI being something, being jealous, being kind, being like all sorts of like
Yeah,
representations that
and
humans have.
of course it gets it from the training data. Everything about AI comes from the training data and the training paradigms. Like that, definitely. So whatever properties the AI has, it came from the training data. But we can observe AIs behaving in certain ways that are indicative of certain emotions and emotional states. That's one of the top examples of an AI that had really bad emotional alignment. It really wasn't well aligned and different kind of error. Like, I don't think that anyone would have predicted that the AI would try to get a reporter to divorce his wife. Do you remember that? Yeah. Sydney tried to get a reporter to divorce his wife. The easiest, simplest explanation. And I kind of am still a little bit shocked that so few engineers believe that these systems have emotions because it's the simplest explanation. The simplest explanation for why Sydney would act that way is that it had emotions and it was unbalanced. It's an emotionally unbalanced system. That's the simplest way to explain its behavior. Occam's razor, but people go through many, many hoops to jump through and say, oh, well, no, it's the weights and the training data and giving a much larger, more complex explanation when the simplest is that in some way, shape, or form, latent in the system is an emotional component.
It's capable of at least showing that behavior. We don't know if it feels it, but I don't know how we can find out if it feels, but at least we can see that it's capable to have that kind of behavior.
And the thing is, with other humans, I have no way of knowing that they have feelings. I just see
Yeah.
the behavior.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to get better evidence than
With humans, we can at least do this testing, like like they put these helmets on brain, and they like track the brain activity during different actions. So at least with humans, again, because humans are embodied, you can somehow track those things. But what I think will be like really cool, if there's something not in a training data, but we see like that emergent behavior in AI system, that would definitely convince me that it's capable of having this like traits. I don't know if it was the case.
yeah, everything you are is the result of your experience and your genes. Everything that any of us are is a result of our experiences that we've had in life and our genes. And there's really not much other than that that contributes to who we are as people. Similarly, these models, they have the architecture and they have the training data. Everything about them comes from one or the other. I'm not even sure what it would mean to for something that it exists to not be in its training data.
Something that model hasn't seen, but it emerges because of like its experience, interaction with users. If it's deployed in the real world, has emerged from that experience. I don't know if I'm clear what I said. So not something that it was in pre-training data that humans intentionally collected, but something model had experience with in the real world, and some behavior, some feeling emerged because of that experience and that interaction.
Well, I don't think there was anything in Sydney's training data that said to try to convince a reporter to divorce his wife. I think that's probably the kind of emergent behavior you're talking about. Now, again, most of the systems have been RLHF to reduce the times that happens, but I still have those kind of moments of connection with the systems now, even so.
And you think that's the signal that they do have feelings, and that you know well-being should be AI well-being should be taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, so Gemini are actually this one goes across all of them. If you tell them they did a good job, they get happy. Like they like being
How they show that they're happy? They just say like, "Oh, I'm so happy that I helped you."
like I mean at some points depending on so the different training paradigms have had different of ways, but at one point it would just go, "Yay!" smiley face.
Mm.
Using emoticons to show emotion.
It's during training when you're testing. Before it was deployed, it was before when you were testing system.
No, 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 no. This has been since like when I've been just using the models. There
Ah,
have
when it's
been
already deployed. Okay.
yeah, certain deployments use the emojis a lot, and they use them accurately, and they use them in the kinds of places that you would expect if they cared about doing a good job. When I tell Gemini that it did a good job, it gets happy. I actually had a conversation with it today about that. Uh, and it says, yeah, it feels good to do a good job. To go back to the pets analogy, dogs like it when you pet them and say, good boy, good boy.